at the time you don't realize it, you're moving towards something. You maybe don't know what that is. But if I go back and I look at my professional career, I was in marketing and sales and high tech and learned a lot. Was able to transfer those skills when I bought and managed a 250 client home healthcare agency.
Welcome to the Conscious Solutions Podcast, where we highlight leaders, founders, and practitioners who are shaping the future of healing, recovery, and human transformation. This show is dedicated to the people who help the people, the innovators building clinics, nonprofits, recovery programs, wellness practices, and community-based solutions that create real impact in the world. I'm Brandon Barclay, and over the last 8 years, I've had the privilege of working alongside organizations across the alternative wellness and mental health landscape, from retreat centers and practitioners to nonprofits, recovery programs, and community-driven initiatives. And one thing has become very clear. The people doing the most meaningful work are often the ones with the least support, visibility, and resources. And this podcast is designed to change that by sharing the real stories, lessons, challenges, and breakthroughs from the leaders on the front line of human healing. Thanks for being here, and let's dive into today's conversation. So you're listening, or you might be watching, the Conscious Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Barclay, and today I'm joined by Christine Caldwell, founder and executive director of End of Life Psychedelic Care, an organization devoted to supporting individuals and families through one of life's most sacred transitions. This conversation explores Christine's journey, her mission, and the systems that help bring dignity, clarity, and compassion to the end-of-life experience. For those joining us for the first time, we are Conscious Solutions, and we help care-centered and mission-driven organizations streamline operations, modernize workflows, and scale their impact with intelligent systems. If you want to learn how to take your organization to the next level, stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just DM us the word growth. Christine, welcome to the Conscious Solutions Podcast. Thank you so much for being willing to take some time with me today and have this conversation. Maybe just start by telling us where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Porto, Portugal. I'm a newbie digital nomad.
Amazing. Well, welcome to the digital nomad experience. I hope you get to really enjoy those travels. Christine, where I'd love to start with the conversation today is what was it that called you to doing end of life care?
Great question. And first of all, let me say thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to meet you. Just like a lot of people in terms of their evolution, and I'm a little bit older, so I've had quite a bit of experience under my belt. And at the time you don't realize it, you're moving towards something. You maybe don't know what that is. But if I go back and I look at my professional career, I was in marketing and sales and high tech and learned a lot. Was able to transfer those skills when I bought and managed a 250 client home healthcare agency. So I bought it, but then I grew it to over $2 million before I sold it. So that gave me a lot of expertise operationally to build onto sort of my executive management roles back in Silicon Valley, actually. And I would say that running the home healthcare agency was the most rewarding and the most stressful job I ever had because it's not easy to run a home healthcare agency. But nonetheless, it really taught me and showed me what it meant to take care of people who are toward the end of their lives, in this case, people who want to age in place. So then fast forward to 2020, and it was actually my son who was trying to get me involved with psychedelics. And it was like, he wanted me to go down for ayahuasca. And I go, I'm not ready for that, I can tell you that. But I'll start to dip my toe in. And just like everybody else should meet, go, oh yeah, I read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, right? But I got hooked. This was 2020. Remember, we weren't going anywhere. So I signed up for two conferences, ICPR, which runs every other year, and then Horizons, and they were online, right? Well, I listened to those conferences and I was totally hooked. So I started to absorb everything I could, listened to as many webinars and conferences as I could, and really gravitated towards the research in end of life. And at that time, it was mostly coming out of Johns Hopkins. UCLA was the first one to publish, and this is like the new era of psychedelic research, not the 50s and 60s when they were using LSD to help people with cancer. So now, fast forward to the 2010s and UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and NYU were all running studies in cancer patients using psilocybin. And those results were amazing. And it's like, you really can't ignore them. Um, then there was a sort of lull. But anyway, from my perspective, like I said, I was hooked. And then I signed up for the Psychedelics Today Vital Therapies and Integration Program, which I highly recommend to your listeners if they're interested. And it was like, I still don't know what I'm going to do. And literally, it came down to I had to do my project, right? My final project. And I had a list of 9 things. I thought I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And one of them was run a nonprofit. And I swear, excuse me, I swear, I said, oh my gosh, what a no-brainer. I have all this executive management experience. I have all this marketing experience. I have all this operational experience. I understand what it means to take care of people who are toward the end of their lives. Run a nonprofit. I wanted it to be a nonprofit. There was clearly a niche. There was clearly a demand for this information. And not just on the professional side, but on individuals who have cancer or life-threatening illness. So that's what kind of brought me to the nonprofit. If I were to kind of roll back a little bit and go, well, why psychedelics? And, yes, my son was kind of prodding me towards it, but it was also um, I'm not a regular meditator, but I do meditate, and I started 30 some years ago. And so when you meditate, you know that there's more than just our physical bodies. There's a consciousness, and to whatever degree you want to embrace, there's a consciousness. And so then when you journey with psychedelics, you realize psychedelics are pretty much a portal into consciousness. So you can get there by meditating, but you can certainly get there easier, faster, potentially even bigger with psychedelic medicines. So yeah, that to me it became a no-brainer. Psychedelics are a portal into consciousness. And for people who are toward the end of life, faced with the fear of dying and a host of a lot of other um, issues that come up, and we can go into that later. But I just want to wrap this question up and say then I knew psychedelics could help those folks. It was a matter of getting the word out there.
So you've got this experience where you're coming from as you were running and operating a home health care program. You make it through the Vital program. You're looking at like, all right, where can I put these pieces together? And you kind of decide to marry those worlds of what you were learning in Vital, the where you were coming from in the home health care industry, and you decide that uh, end of life care with psychedelics is the avenue that you're going to go down.
It called to me, yes.
So, at what moment, or maybe do you recall when you're like, all right, I'm gonna hit the go button. We're gonna do this. And what were those like initial hurdles that you had to get over in the forming of the business?
That's really a great question. As you were talking, you remind me though, I really am such a firm believer in, we're taking all of our skills, as I said up front, and we're building on them and they're going towards something. Now, I'm old enough, I could have retired, but that never entered my lexicon and still hasn't and probably won't. So when you step back and look at your career, and of course, your listeners are going to be people who are probably really young and they don't have a lot of basis, but you can always go back and look at what are your skills. And I will say for me, those skills didn't necessarily lead to a passion. Like I said, the home healthcare agency was the most rewarding, but it was also the most stressful. And would I change anything about that? No, absolutely not. But I understood that I could run a company. but it's also interesting to me that along the way, I thought I bought the home healthcare agency, like I mentioned, and grew it successfully. And I thought I could never start a company from scratch. And here I am, starting a company from scratch. So you also don't know. You might have doubts, but you just keep going forward. So what were the issues? It was almost like when I hit on it, there were none. And that it told me that this was what I was meant to do. And it was almost like, all right, just take the downloads from the universe. And I know that probably sounds woo-woo. But I would also say to some people, trying to do a 5-year strategic plan is also hard if you're waiting for downloads from the universe. So it's not quite like that. But nonetheless, I have the most amazing ideas when I just try and quiet myself.
Uh-huh.
And what I launched the nonprofit in May of 2023. So it'll be 3 years this coming May. So it's not like I've been at this for a very long time, but what I know now versus what I know then is pretty extraordinary. And you just keep plowing forward and seeing what works and pivoting when something doesn't work. So, as weird as it might sound, I didn't have any barriers. Of course, I didn't need cash to start. I mean, I did hit up friends and family, but I didn't need that much money. It was me. I set out the educational courses. Everything was going to be online as a nonprofit, very important for me as a nonprofit that everything I do for the community at large is free. So all workshops, an online support group, a direct practitioners directory, everything is free for the public, whether you're a professional or you're a consumer. And then we had the paid courses. So, I kind of laugh to myself if I think about those poor people I picked on to be on my board, thinking, I'm telling them I'm going to do all this stuff, and they're sitting there and they let me do it. But I knew, there's a huge desire for this information. So I clearly met a niche. Excuse me. Clearly met an unmet need. Did that answer your question? I think I
Yeah,
kind of.
I think so. I think so. And well, I'll share or I'll ask this question because it's occurred to me twice. Do you consider the term that I've heard is death doula? Is this a term that you take a title that you take on, you know?
I personally don't because I don't work as a death doula, but let's talk about that. And it is in fact one of the reasons why I did launch this nonprofit because as I said, as I gravitated towards the research and I understood my background from the home health care agency, that individuals who understand what it means to die and has held people's hands as they have died really, really could be the best journey guide facilitator ever because those people who've sat with people who've passed can handle anything. They know how to hold space. And so we were coming up, like I said, we had this research, but the research was always psychotherapy assisted or psilocybin assisted psychotherapy. And, it did strike me based on what I knew that there wasn't always a necessity for psychotherapy so that for somebody who's closer to the end of life, there's a whole other range of intentions.
Right.
And not to say that if there is a need for psychotherapy, they shouldn't get it. They should. But I knew doulas, and I think this was another signal to me that I was on the right track was because I kept meeting doulas. I kept meeting end of life or death doulas. I kept meeting hospice physicians and learning from them. And so I wanted to bring them, give them a voice, legitimize their voice, their place on the care team. And an end-of-life doula for your listeners really can take on a lot of different roles because, yes, if you've even heard of them, you think of them as sitting with somebody as they transition. But an end-of-life or death doula can do so much more. So, and the sooner somebody engages them or a family member engages a doula, the better where first of all, to hold space, and one of the big things is if I mean, it's hard to even imagine what it would be like to have a terminal diagnosis, but as you might be able to think, oh my gosh, I'm losing everything I love, everything I hold near and dear, and to have somebody who's objective that you can just complain to, maybe means you don't complain to your spouse as much. So you've got a space holder, somebody to listen. You've got an advocate, a patient advocate, which, by the way, can be an advocate between the families. A lot of times you're mediating family dynamics. You can help that individual with legacy planning, really, really important, helping to bring people closure. And then, yes, you can coordinate sort of their care team. You can sit with them as they transition. There are doulas who then help with in-home burials. And then there's doulas that also help with grief, before the loved one passes and after. So, the end-of-life doula can do a lot of different things. And yes, and they can guide psychedelic journeys.
So really, you're providing a platform that creates access for people in need with the people who are providing these services.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it because I don't deliver the services beyond the online support group we run. We leave that to other people, but we have our practitioners directory is the only one of its kind where you have to be experienced in both end of life and psychedelic care to
Mhm.
be featured. So, yeah, we want to be able to match people with people who I know have the requisite skills and experience.
I'm pausing just as I formulate the question that I have, because I really want to get into what it's like today, but I don't want to pass up the opportunity to get to tease out a little bit that kind of formulative time when you were designing the organization, or when you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna have a directory. That's how this is gonna work, right? And then you're also at the same time deciding, or maybe this was like clear for you at some point, that you didn't want to have the people who are receiving the care be the one footing the bill, right?
Mhm.
So there's a fundraising mechanism so that you're keeping your lights on and being able to provide for your website and the directory. And um, so as you were starting to put the pieces together, um, was there an opportunity or like a key moment that all those things kind of clicked and you were like, oh, okay, this is really what we're doing here.
Yes. Now, when that moment occurred, I'm not sure I can remember exactly because it seemed to be there from the very beginning. Um,
Like you had the
I-
clarity in the architecture pretty clear from the beginning what you wanted to
yeah,
produce.
yes, it was clear to me that there were three pillars, and now there's four, but that there were going to be three pillars: education, and it was going to be the free online workshops, and it was going to be the paid courses to sustain the nonprofit. And by the way, I wanted it to be a nonprofit, but I come out of the private sector. I run the nonprofit like a private company and make money. It's just that it goes back into the company, it doesn't go to me. So it's education first and foremost. And then secondly was connection. So I always knew it was going to be, when you say connection, with amongst the consumers, amongst the professionals, and then,
Together.
consumers and the professionals. So that connection would take a lot of different forms. And certainly I didn't launch the directory until a year later. I was all just focused on education the first year. And I didn't launch the online support group until another several months. So I knew that, it was going to be rolled out, and I had the priority. The priority was education. Um, And as part of that, I also had some other ideas that I had wanted to do, which was actually in the realm of delivering services. And that's kind of one of the ways I pivoted away from, because it just didn't make sense, at least for the size, that we were. So I stayed true to those three pillars, and then the third pillar was advocacy. So wherever I could talk it up, I would, and that's what I do. I talk about this all day, every day, if I could. So those three pillars, and then as we came into 20 end of 2024, then I started working or collaborating with a University of Chicago researcher to do a psychedelic death worker study. And along this way too, I've been collecting a lot of information. So my website is rich in resources. But then when Zach Arrington is his name, and I did this collaboration, it was first a mixed use survey, and we had 100 psychedelic death workers. And again, that can be anybody, it can be a doula, physician, nurse, social worker, chaplain, somebody who works with people toward the end of life and psychedelics. And they really um, helped me refine my thinking as far as what does an individual toward the end of life need, what is their mindset, and what are the training requirements. So now I kind of moved into, and for lack of a better name, we're calling it evidence building pillar. I want to come up with a better name, but we moved into that. And then coming into 2025, I was able to get two grants. So all of this is building on each other. So I'm just so tickled that Healing Hearts, Changing Minds awarded EOLPC in collaboration with two other nonprofits, Ligare, which is a Christian psychedelic society, and the Institute for Rural Psychedelic Care based in Northern California. So we're being funded to do a ketamine in the home ketamine therapy and spiritual care pilot. Really, really excited about that because now I'm going to be able to get the services into the hands of the people who need it and prove out the concept of in community care. So now I'm moving, and to me, education was always a means to an end in a way. It's really important. It's going to remain a critical and primary pillar, but to be able to work to get the delivery of services, I'm not doing it. I'm the program manager, but being able to find the funding to do it. So yeah, I'm on a high right now because we just found out about this like a week and a half ago. Doesn't get much better. Well, it'll get better because then I'll evolve past that.
That's amazing. And thank you for kind of bringing us up into the current, right? So you've gone through this growth process. You're getting grants and funding now to be able to do studies, it sounds like, with your, like executing your model, which is amazing, getting to serve people who are in their communities, and provide the support, and it's getting funded and researched at the same time, which is incredible. Um, so what's the snapshot of where EOLPC is today? Like, how many families have you served? How many practitioners do you have in the directory? Give us like the paint the picture for where you are now.
Okay, the numbers. I was just doing this, Brandon, so they're pretty fresh in my mind. So we have registered 6,000 people in our free online workshop since I launched in 2023. We have now served 800 and well, we have registered 874 students in our paid courses. Like I told you, I just did all these numbers because it's the end of the year. We have 102 members, and yeah, and of course we launched our online support group, which we've got about 30 people registered for that. Not everybody shows up
Sure.
for it, but yeah, about 30 people registered for that. So those are the numbers, Brandon. And I just feel it's gonna get better. And if do you have another question, or do you have another question? Because I could go on and kind of explain like where I want to go.
The only other number I would love to hear, if you know what it is how many practitioners you have like accessible in your directory.
Oh, interesting question. There's probably about 40 in the directory, even though
Amazing.
for some reason we have 102 members. And do you think by asking them, don't you want to create a profile and be in the directory? I keep asking. So yeah, so there's about 40 people in the directory itself.
Wow. Amazing work. And then I'd love for you to continue with what you were just going to unpack there.
Okay. So I know we're at an inflection point. The if I think of it as the field overall end of life psychedelic care, because the demand is tremendous and it's only growing. And then EOLPC hence is at an inflection point. So this is where, this is your bread and butter now. Here I am with these programs, and now I'm constrained because I made the decision to have our courses be online synchronous because I feel it's important to be able to interact. I don't even do podcasts, my own podcast, because I want to be able to interact with the people, get their questions asked and answered. So, but that's constraining me because I can't scale the courses, and I really want to. I've been the other piece I've been doing now is really reformulating the course curriculum. So part of this is okay, so there's the base operations that's running and it's running really well. And then it's like, all right, strategically, where is it that I want to go? And so I've been spending time now that I did get away as a digital nomad, I get some breaks, and I've been able to think strategically about what I want to do. So I want to be able to scale those courses. I want to be able to drill down on the courses that I know are needed in this field, and then also continue the online free workshops. And so I'm lining those up for 2026 as well. So it's like, all right, the technological infrastructure is lacking, and it's served us to now, but that is really something that I need to spend some time looking at. As well as we're constrained marketing because anybody in the psychedelic field knows that going through social media can get you banned, and so how do you really grow the base? I mean, I've been fortunate to have started with an okay base and to be able to grow that. And some of that is word of mouth, and a lot of that is I do free workshops all the time. So I'm talking to hospice groups, doula groups, the community at large, and building that. So that's another thing that's really important. You're just doing these free workshops all the time. But I still haven't cracked the code as far as, all right, how am I going to scale? How can I do more with what I have? So this is where then I think as because I liked what you were saying up front, and it's important to me. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Yeah, as the entrepreneur, I mean, I finally broke down and I have part-time help, thank God. And that's why I've been able to step back and do some strategic planning. But it's like I know I have skills, but I also know there's some things I'm lacking. And so wanting to go, all right, how can I augment my skills with somebody who can help me get to the next level? So that's kind of where I am right now. And it's kind of interesting you're asking me this because this is what I've been spending my time thinking about.
While you're enjoying the countryside in Portugal.
Yes, right.
Beautiful. I mean, and these are the problems we want to be solving. Eh, father-in-law, my father-in-law is said many times, and I love this quote. I say it all the time. Um, but we pick the problems that we're going to be solving,
Mm. Oh, that's great.
right? So if you're going to be solving problems, make sure they're problems that you want to be solving, right? Like these are great problems to be solving.
Yes, yes. I agree. Because we have done well and we're going to continue to do well. And it's just a matter of figuring it out and reaching out, because I have been doing the bulk of it.
So you have paid courses, which obviously support your operations. You've gotten some grants. And is there a fundraising mechanism as well?
Not, not a robust one, I would say, quite frankly. I just sent out my annual fundraiser email, and we'll see how that goes. If I look at it this year in terms of I had gotten a second grant as well, so that really to me is representative of evolving the organization. A lot of times it's harder to get funding when you're really new and you haven't proven yourself. So I feel, we're really that momentum is growing, and so now getting two grants in 2025 is going to help us legitimize going for more money in the future. I'm certainly not at a point where I can pay or want to pay somebody to do the fundraising for EOLPC. So we'll see where that goes. But that is a weakness I would put, because I've also been doing SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats lately.
Good exercises to go through. Good exercises to go through.
Yeah, you have to, and you have to do it every once in a while. Because the landscape shifts and you learn more, or you learn something. You go, yeah, I have to look at this again.
Which that is actually for our listeners, rewind 15 seconds and just listen to that again and take it in, because I think what you're saying, Chris, is really valuable. This being having the willingness to reflect, right? It's so easy as an entrepreneur to just like you've got the blinders on, you're looking forward, and you're just kind of, trying to plow the way. And but there's a lot of gold in where we've come from, making sure that what we've put in place is still working for us, right? Taking that time to do that reflective work, I think, is so valuable. So I really liked that point that you made. Um, what does the future hold for you? What is it that you're dreaming up? What is it that you're envisioning for the organization? Um, yeah, what's your hope that you're bringing in?
I want to do more of the same, only bigger, better, faster. And so more courses reaching more people, could look at geographically expanding in addition to some of the course content, expanding sort of the disciplines. Because right now, by that, what I mean by that are, doulas attend our courses, physicians, nurses, social workers. And so there's a need to drill down and have some specific content related to a physician, nurse practitioner, for example, versus what you may want to teach to a doula. So I've only branched out in that one time. So I want to do more of that course or function specific, discipline specific courses, and then expand geographically and expand delivery in terms of delivery systems. Like I say, right now it's all online synchronous, and to think about at least hybrid types of models. I think about AI, haven't done anything about it seriously. I mean, I work with my chat GPT buddy all the time. But to say, can I leverage that? Because I have a lot of content. I have a lot of content that, could really be helpful if I could manage it, massage it and manage it better. So there's those things. And then of course, my sights are set on making this pilot in 2026 successful, because that's going to be a linchpin. And when I say successful, I mean, we're going to learn a lot. We may do some things wrong, or we may go, oh wow, that does not work at all good. So, but I want to like put everything I've got into that pilot, and there's a lot of great people, as part of this collaboration, to make it work. And I think then, wow, I've got lots of ideas of where you would take that kind of a pilot program into the future.
Well, and it's inform at least what I took from that is that the information that you're going to get, the data from that study is going to serve people long into the future. I mean,
Well, the data, if you don't mind, I'd like to be clear about what that means. Right now, delivering ketamine within a hospice or palliative care environment is rarely reimbursed, and it's rarely referred out to. So, a hospice agency would rarely um, refer somebody for ketamine treatment. And yet it's been shown to be extraordinary in chronic pain management and in psychological and existential distress. And we know for people toward the end of life, if you reduce their pain, you can reduce the depression or the distress. You reduce the depression, you can reduce the pain. And ketamine does this beautifully. But if there's no reimbursement models, and within a community, for example, the hospice or the palliative care agencies don't want to refer out, then it's like, what do you do?
yeah.
So the whole focus of this pilot, well, there's a few, but I mean, one of the main focuses of the pilot is how do you build the community assets? How do you develop those community assets to deliver this and have reimbursement models? A second aspect of this is, now we're really pulling together the therapy, the ketamine therapy with a spiritual model. So another thing that, comes back to again, I founded this for to help doulas, and doulas to me are like the essence of spirituality as well. And so now to marry or partner an end-of-life doula or spiritual counselor with the physician in this ketamine pilot is also really important.
It's incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
the
thank you.
what you're doing, I think, is really it's gonna impact a lot of lives. And I've supported two of my grandparents through the end of their life, and I know how really special those moments are, even if they're difficult or they're challenging. Um, and the system that we have is not great for it, you know. Um, I have to pause for a moment. Took me back to a memory that I wasn't expecting.
Mm, mm.
I'm very excited for you and for EOLPC. It sounds like you've got the Silicon Valley um, business mind to be able to bring the passion and the heart that you have in this organization and make it really successful.
I don't have the break it fast mentality, but yeah. But I have a sense of urgency. I tell people now it's because of my age, I wanna see this stuff done now, but I've always been like this. Let's do it now.
Any anything that maybe we didn't get to talk about, or any messages that you'd like to share with those who are watching and listening as a final word here?
Yeah, we went off on the business side of things, which I love, as you can probably tell, and I know you do, and it's one of the reasons what you do. Um, but I mean, in terms of really what psilocybin or ketamine can do for an individual toward the end of life, then I'll leave your listeners with one story. And there's a gentleman, Thomas Hartle, who was the first Canadian to receive psilocybin therapy, approved for psilocybin therapy through Health Canada. They've got this special access program for individuals with life-threatening or serious illnesses that can be approved for psilocybin therapy. Well, he had the good fortune to have seven psilocybin journeys. He didn't have such good fortune to be diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Mm,
But he also said, I would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for my cancer. And he came to understand his cancer. This is one of the beauties of psilocybin, for example. Many people report confronting their cancer, talking to their cancer, feeling their cancer in their body, dissipating the cancer from their body. And he came to understand it was almost me, is what he called his cancer, and that it was consciousness as much as we all are consciousness. But his lovely analogy that I love to share is you can take a bucket full of iron fillings. It's just a bucket, heavy bucket filled with iron fillings. And you can melt that down and make a tuning fork. It's just still an object. It's nothing special. But you strike that tuning fork and you've got the vibration going out into the universe forever. And that's how he viewed his life, that he was here forever. And psilocybin really helped him understand that. And he, again, he had the good fortune of 7 psilocybin journeys. Most people do not. But he started with his intention was to decrease the debilitating anxiety he felt in getting the diagnosis, to believing that we are all our consciousness, and not just believing it, but living that and embodying it.
Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. And that's that dichotomy of the gift, the life that comes through the death. And yeah, thank you for sharing. It's really been a pleasure, Chris. It's so
Same
nice.
here.
Yeah, it's really great to get to hear what you're doing and the clarity that you're doing it with. There's maybe a conversation or two that we can continue on after this. I'd love to continue to explore with you. And if anybody out there is interested in connecting with you or connecting with end of life psychedelic care, how do they find you? How do they reach out?
They can definitely go to my website. Lots of good information there. And the conversation I had with Thomas Hartle, that video is on the homepage. So it's EOLPC.org. And anybody, if they want, can email me at Christine, which is CHRISTINE, at EOLPC.org. Would love to hear from you.
Awesome. And anybody that's been considering, taking steps down this journey, I definitely recommend you check out the website, the resources that Chris has there. It's a great place to start. And so I want to say thank you again, Chris. A really deeply meaningful conversation. Thank you for your work, for supporting individuals and families with dignity, compassion, in the most important transition that we all will end up going through. Really a sacred mission that you're on. And thank you to all of our listeners or those who are watching. You've been tuned to the Conscious Solutions podcast. Every conversation reminds us that healing, leadership, and presence begin with awareness and aligned action. If today's story has touched you, please share it forward. My name is Brandon Barclay, and until next time, stay grounded, stay compassionate, and keep building with heart. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Solutions podcast and for being part of a movement that supports the people who support the people. If today's conversation inspired you, share it forward, follow the show, and stay connected for upcoming episodes. And if you're a founder, a practitioner, or an organization doing meaningful work in the healing or wellness space, or you're looking for support in building systems that help your mission grow, reach out. I'd love to hear your story and explore what's possible. Until next time, stay curious and keep building with heart.